We're going to hold on a minute. The mayor's having some technical difficulties joining the meeting. So.
Link and I'll pull it up on my computer. You can do it on here.
Hi, can anybody hear me?
I can.
This is Lou Meshedy. Okay, good, good.
Y'all set?
Yeah.
Good.
The mayor's having some technical difficulties still. He's working on getting his Zoom meeting up, but he asked the vice mayor if he wouldn't mind starting the meeting and getting us going.
Certainly can. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm good.
Okay. Let's call this meeting to order then. Can we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
to the
to the
flag
flag
of the United
of the
States of
United
America
States of America
and to the
and
republic
to the
for
republic
which it
for which
stands,
it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty and justice
for
for
all.
all.
Thank you. I'm unaware, the mayor usually takes care of that, but is there anyone here to present the invocation for tonight's meeting?
There was no one scheduled to do the invocation. I don't know if the mayor had asked any of the commissioners to present tonight.
Okay, I'd be happy to if we don't have. You bow your heads, please. Our Lord Jesus Christ, we thank you for this day, and I thank you for bringing us all together here tonight. Pray that you'll help us all to remember that respect and dignity are required for meetings like this, and that you guide us in the decisions that we make tonight. Keep us all safe, and we thank you for the wonderful things that you've done for us and the wonderful things that you're going to be doing for our city in the future. In your name we pray. Amen.
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 All right, next on the agenda is a roll call. Is Ken Rhodes on here tonight?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you, Ken. There's a lot of people here, so.
Yeah, sure is. Okay. Commissioner Burr,
Present.
Commissioner Klinger,
Here.
Commissioner Wiki,
Here.
Commissioner Malone,
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Littman. He's probably not going to be here tonight, I don't think. He's on his way back. Commissioner Good,
Here.
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Present.
and we'll make Mayor Heil announce himself when he gets here.
I am here now.
Oh, he's here now.
I
Okay.
made it.
All right.
With the help of Andrew.
Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Jeff, very much on it. Do you want me to continue? You want me to take over for you? All right. The next item on our agenda is the proclamation and presentations, and we have a proclamation or presentation, Sturgis Municipal Well Field Superfund Site Update. Michael.
Thank you, Your Honor. I thought it might be a good idea to have some guests give a presentation or an update on the Superfund site and maybe get us up to speed on how the cleanup is going. So I invited some people, and we have a number of guests here tonight. And so I think most are either with Newell Brands, representing Newell Brands, and then we also have some representatives from Eagle as well. And I'm not sure how we're going to start this, but I could introduce Jessica Ferris. She's with Eagle and often my contact on this project. And so maybe I'll just turn it over to her.
Absolutely. So my name is Jessica Ferris. I've been working on this Superfund site for a little over 5 years now. It's the first one that I was given when I started with the Superfund section. My project geologist is Chuck Graff, who has been on the site for a long time. This site has two separate source areas. So we refer to the Kirsch source area as the property at Hatch and Prospect Streets. And then there is a source area on Jacobs Street as well. Newell Brands is the responsible party associated with the Kirsch source area. And their contractor, ERM, Scott Lang is with ERM, and he is going to actually give the presentation and give an update on the site for everyone. So Scott?
Yeah, I think actually I'm gonna turn it over to Lou from Newell Brands to just give a brief introduction, and then I'll take care of like the technical things here. But can everybody see the screen okay?
Yes.
Okay. Lou, do you
Okay.
want to start?
Yes, my name is Lou Meshedy. I'm a consultant for Newell Brands, and also with us this evening, although I haven't seen them yet, are representatives of Newell Brands, Kristen Jones and Kristen Rivera. So Scott has introduced himself already, and he's going to provide the site update. So take it away, Scott.
All right. As Mike had said, we really just wanted to take a few minutes and kind of reintroduce the team to the city, provide a general update of where things are at currently and since the last city update in 2019, and then just address any questions or concerns that folks may have as we kind of work through this. So feel free to ask questions as we go through, but we can also address them towards the end as well. Either way, no problem. So as Jessica mentioned, the Sturgis Municipal Wellfield Superfund site really came into, I guess, the Superfund record of decision in 1991, 1982. The contamination impacted soils and groundwater was found in this general area that you see here. That's the boundaries of the soil contamination of the site. Other areas of the site include the contaminated groundwater originating from that area. And as we get through this, you'll see I've got some slides showing the groundwater plumes and things like that. So to give you a better idea of what we're looking at here, but primary contaminants of concern associated with this site were TCE and PCE, or trichloroethylene and perchloroethylene as well. So, but the source area or the main portion of the site is located at the corner intersection of Hatch and Prospect. So just to give you guys a bit of an idea on timeline, we can go through, there's a lot of details that have gone on throughout the years at the site, but I'm trying to keep this high level so that way we can keep it condensed into 15 minutes. But as I mentioned, contamination was discovered in 1982. The record of decision was when implemented in 1991. From the beginning of 1994 is when groundwater extraction or remediation began and is currently ongoing. Between this scale, this time frame here, what you're going to see is there were multiple investigations and other activities that have occurred. But what we're trying to demonstrate here or show is really since 2017 through today, there's been quite a bit of activity. We've started with doing some soil gas investigations and in 2016, which resulted in installation of residential indoor air mitigation systems in 2017. In 2018, though the site that I showed you on the previous slide is when we started and began surface soil excavation, so removal of impacted soils at the site. 2019, we completed installation of a air sparge SVE system, and then rolled into 2020 where we went through and did some additional excavation on the east parcel, which the former IPM building area property there. And then just a couple things as we move into today, we're going to work through, we're in the process of installing an SVE system on the IPM parking lot to the south of Hatch Street. And then we'll also be working forward into installing an air sparge SVE system east of Prospect, north of Hatch as well. That's going to be coming up this year. As I mentioned, since there's been the remedies that are currently in place, one that basically happened in 1994 and is still ongoing is the groundwater extraction and treatment. I kind of walked through the excavation of impacted soils and then the vapor intrusion and air sparge SVE. I'll get into more of those details as we move through. The big message here is we do currently have 2 groundwater extraction systems operating within the city boundaries. One is located at North Centerville and International Way at the intersection there, and then the other at the intersection, the southwest corner of North Prospect and East Hatch. We've been running since 1994. Over 26 billion gallons of water have been treated, and we've removed and recovered over 80,000 pounds of TCE. These systems are anticipated to continue operate for the foreseeable future here, and such, but we are making a dent, and you'll see this here. I'll give you a minute to digest this a little bit, but really what we're showing here is the shallow aquifer. At the site, we have 2 aquifers, the shallow and then the deep aquifer. The deep aquifer is the aquifer where I guess the city establishes and pulls their drinking water from up gradient of all of this, but the shallow aquifer is immediately below the surface. And prior to, I'll just say the shallow aquifer is 0 to 60 feet, and then the deep aquifer is 60 feet and beyond, below ground surface. But what I've pulled together here is two figures, and I apologize, the scale's not perfect between the two of them, but working with figures that we had in 1988 compared to figures that we have in 2020, I did my best. But the big message, or the important message here, is within the shallow aquifer in 1988, the impacted groundwater extended from the east at Centerville Road and all the way west to Broda Street, and had concentrations of greater than 10,000 micrograms per liter of TCE in chlorine. To where we take that view and look currently in 2020, where the contamination extent from the east sides near Center Street and extends over towards Nottawa. And with that said, our maximum concentrations are at 360 micrograms per liter. So over that time frame, we've seen significant concentrations drop, and also size of the plume decrease and shrink for the shallow aquifer. And the same can be said for the deep aquifer. In 1988, as you can see, it had a very different look than what it does now currently in 2020. We had concentrations, again, greater than 10,000 micrograms per liter of chlorinated solvents, primarily TCE. And you can see that, again, the scales are close, but not perfect. But essentially in 1988, we were over here at West Lafayette, not counting this little plume over, and extending all the way over near the north-south runway at Kirsch International Airport. And then also to the extent as far north as West Lafayette, and as far south as Magnolia Street down here a little bit. So very, very large plume with very highly concentrated levels of chlorinated solvents. Today, our plume has a very different shape, and that's just from time and operations of the groundwater treatment systems. We're starting here from the east over at Dresser, sticking with north, the north and south runway, but our northern boundaries are at East Dresser, and our southern boundaries are really US 12. And concentrations in this particular, the deep aquifer, are less than 150 micrograms per liter versus greater than 10,000. So we're seeing significant order of magnitude reduction in the deep aquifer. So all in all, the groundwater extraction systems are working and making progress. So going back to the source area, which is at the intersection of Prospect and Hatch, we have some residual TCE, PCE concentrations within the soils above the groundwater table, but below the surface. And so we've been working with Eagle to address that. And as a result, in 2018 and 2019, we were out on site and did some shallow source area excavations, where we removed a little over 16,000 tons of impacted soils from the areas on site. And next steps, which we've already begun, is really to address the deeper impacted soils, and also the capillary fringe, which is the area where the groundwater intersects the soil, and that water table can fluctuate over years depending on how much infiltration from rain and precipitation and so forth. But so essentially what we did in 2019 on the west parcel is we installed an air sparge SVE system focused on removal, because the chlorinated solvents are pretty volatile. So what we do is we induce a vacuum within the vadose zone to get airflow through the soil space within, above the groundwater table to remove the contaminants of concern, and then we sparge or inject air below the groundwater table to bubble the groundwater and volatilize those contaminants and extract them through the soil vapor extraction wells, and then we treat them above grade. And which if you've driven by the site, and you'll notice there's a small Conex box as shown here that houses our treatment system equipment and stuff, and that's where the extracted vapors are being treated. So, and in 2019 on the west parcel side, which is west of Prospect, north of Hatch, we did install an air sparge SVE system there, which you can see 24 extraction wells, 37 sparge wells, and then a few air injection wells. But we've got over 7,900 linear feet of piping below grade, began operations in 2020, and seeing good progress with anticipating this system to run over the next few years. Planned activities for this year, as I mentioned in the timeline, is really to finish up the SVE system on the IPM parking lot, which is the parcel on the southwest corner of Hatch and Prospect. We've got all of our wells installed there, and we're just looking to tie the extraction wells into the system on the north west corner of that intersection. And then also, as we work through this year, we're going to dig into the east parcel, which is again east of Prospect, north of Hatch. And we're looking at installing another air sparge SVE system consisting of 115 wells, process equipment and piping and so forth. We're looking to get that operational in the fourth quarter of 2021. And one thing I do want to note is on the east parcel, that property was formerly the IPM industrial piping and I think materials or that was there. They've since sold the property to Axo Plastics, who have a warehousing activities going on there. So we will be working and doing all of these activities in conjunction with them to maintain their active warehousing facility there and such. So that way that property has beneficial use as we work through and install this remediation system. And again, the source area work around the Prospect and Hatch Street will be operating over the next few years. So that's pretty much all I had. I apologize for the jumpiness, but does anybody have any questions or comments?
Yes, Barry Cox, our city engineer, has a comment. His hand is raised. Barry?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Jessica, Scott, Lou. I did have a couple of questions, Scott, after your presentation. Number one, the two extraction wells, is each one pulling from a different aquifer? Is one pulling from the upper and one pulling from the lower?
Yes, that is correct. The EW3, which is over at the intersection of Hatch and Prospect, is pulling from the upper aquifer, the shallow aquifer, and EW2 over there on Centerville is pulling from the deep aquifer. That is correct.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that was the case. And then for City Commission, just as a note, I've been working with Scott, and we intend to present to you a potential easement for crossing East Hatch to connect their existing system to the IPM parking lot on the south side of Hatch for consideration. So that should be here in the very near future, we hope. And then, Scott, do you have a gold concentration? And maybe this is a better question for Jessica, overall concentration in both the upper and the lower aquifer? I realize it's not going to be zero, but.
Right. I don't know that that's actually something that we've even considered. It would likely be our drinking water criteria for TCE, which Chuck Graff probably knows that number off the top of his head better than I do.
5 micrograms per liter for TCE.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Last question for Scott. Based on the aquifer layouts you showed with the concentration plumes, is it looks like perhaps we have one of the heavier concentration areas is out basically along Prospect. And I'm sure EW2 is doing something to affect that, but is there a possibility of having to look at another system out there somewhere?
We're working through some evaluations now, looking at basically some modeling and things like that to just kind of see how the overall plume is acting and reacting with our pumping and stuff. So those are some things that, you know, we're continuing to look at and evaluate. But there's a potential, but we're not quite sure yet.
All right, I said that was the last question. I actually have one more because you're on the
Go ahead, Barry.
page that I was actually had a question on, because you have on this page, you have the upper aquifer on the left side. And is this just a mismarked one on the right side? That should be the upper aquifer in 2020.
Oh, sorry. I am sorry. You are correct. It is mismarked. That is the upper as well. I could have swore I fixed that, but yes.
Okay. It threw me a little bit. I was a little confused. I just wanted to make sure that was the case.
You found my error. And that's okay. I'm glad you actually saw that, because yes, I'll correct that here. That is indeed the upper aquifer. So,
Hey, Scott.
yes, sir.
Could you show the people from the city on this right-hand side where EW3 is located?
Yeah, EW3, because this area that you're seeing here is just a zoom in from this one, but EW3 is basically located right about here where my pointer is.
Okay, we did have a couple other, two of the commissioners had hands raised, but I don't see them now. Rick, Commissioner Burr, do you have a question yet?
I've got a couple of them. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay,
so what do you do with all that TCE?
It gets treated through on the air sparge SV systems. It gets treated through vapor phase carbon, and then the carbon gets removed, disposed of offsite, regenerated and such. So
Must take a lot of carbon. The other thing is, you were talking about restoring it to parking lot level. I mean, will the whole site ever be usable for anything besides a parking lot?
Yes, actually, currently, let me scroll back up here. So the former IPM parking lot here, that's still a parking lot.
Right.
The west parcel over here has basically, it's been all graded flat, and that's where the system is, the current air sparge SV system is sat. Then the east parcel, this is the shading of the area that we excavated out. And then in here, we'll have the remediation system go in place. But after the remediation systems are complete and stuff, then, I mean, there's potential reuse for the property, yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Burr. I see you, John, but I got one person ahead of you I got to ask for. Is Commissioner Klinger, I noticed your hand was up and is raised down. Do you have a question, sir?
No, well, no, he answered pretty much everything I was going to jump ask on.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not sure who will respond to this, maybe Newell Brands. The extraction of the contaminants and the cleaning of the contaminants, all very technical and being done very well. The changes in the concentrations appear to be significant over the years. The only thing that appears to not have been addressed is the appearance of the property. When one drives by the chain link fence on the west parcel, it certainly isn't the most attractive. And I'm wondering if a green barrier might be possible at least along North Prospect and Hatch Street. The railroad tracks are not that significant in as a matter of appearance, but is a green barrier planned, or could it be planned?
I guess I can take this right now. Currently, we had not planned for a green barrier, but that's something that we can look at and investigate further, because I mean, I do understand from your perspective, or we do understand from your perspective, driving by and seeing the fence and seeing the system, you know, in there off in the distance and stuff isn't necessarily ideal. On the same aspect, like from my perspective, because we have had issues with vandals and things during construction, I much prefer an open view to the site. So, because there's less chance of riffraff or things from that perspective. But I think there's some things that we can look at and evaluate and work with the city and stuff to come to probably a good resolution or compromise. And I don't want to speak for anybody else on our side, but there's some things that we can work through and discuss, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm just shaking my head. Yes, in agreement. We can
Okay.
we can certainly take a look.
And that was Newell Brands that said that? That was
Yes.
Kristen? Okay, thank you, Kristen.
Okay, are there any other questions from the commission or city staff? Vice Mayor Mullins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to piggyback off of Commissioner Burr's question about uses afterwards, will there be any restrictions to what types of things can be located on that property once all of this is mitigated?
I mean, we do have some deed restrictions in place or going in place right now, working through with the new owner of the east parcel and things like that. But a lot of that really focuses in around, you know, potential groundwater use and things like that. And right now the city has ordinances in place for, you know, not using, installing wells or things like that for that type of activity and things. But most part, once we are finished with remediation, there may be some limited use, but as at this point, it's really hard to say. It kind of depends on when and how we get there. But I mean, we've worked through and remediated many properties over the years, and there's lots of options for property use. And I can't really speak to what those restrictions may be at this time.
Okay, hang on a second, John. Commissioner Klinger.
Yeah, I think Scott would probably be the one to answer this. Is there an exact safe level end goal that you guys have in mind as far as the overall space that the plume exists in, and then obviously its you know, its volume of micrograms per liter?
Well, as Chuck mentioned earlier, our goal is 5 micrograms per liter. So if you were to, let me get back to, like, for example, here, this is looking at the old plume. It was 1 microgram liter all the way up to over 10,000 plus, to where the new plume map and everything is defined at the 5 microgram liter boundary. So that's going to continue to shrink, and essentially we want to get that so that there is nothing to show you. That's the ideal scenario.
I just didn't know if there was I guess a non-testable limit that exists already within the aquifer, like if there's a microgram per liter that, you know, isn't charted on yours because that's already in existence. So I was kind of just clarifying the answer.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Klinger. Commissioner Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Was there at one time a extraction well on the southeast corner of Nottawa and West Street
Yes.
by the Bandholz Pate. That has been abandoned, I guess.
That is correct. That well has been removed because if you see where my pointer is here, that's where EW1 used to reside, and that well has been abandoned because that area of the plume shown here in 1988 is no longer, has nothing really in that area in there. So there's no benefit to operate or run that well. That's why EW2 was installed further down gradient.
So that's proof positive that the method works.
Correct.
And the block building that is there, is that going to remain there forever, or the one that housed the well? Isn't there or is that building gone?
I'm not actually sure because that well was, I don't know, Jessica, or do you know?
Building still exists.
It does. It's still present. Okay.
So I seem to be remembering that we had, that the city had taken over use of that building at some point, but my memory is a little fuzzy on this.
Yeah, this is Mike Hughes. That's true. So when it was decommissioned, we took ownership over the building.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Barry, I noticed your hand went up again, but now are you set with your question, or do you have a question? Barry Cox.
I do not have a question. I was going to answer the question, but Mike got to it.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks, Barry. Again, I'm going to ask, is there any other questions from the commission or staff? If not, Andrew, I don't see your face up here, but would you see if there's any questions from our audience tonight?
Yes, for anybody who's attending via the Zoom meeting, if you wish to ask a question on this agenda item, please use the raise hand feature on your Zoom meeting to do so. I see none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Andrew. I believe if there's no other questions, I believe we just got our presentation. I want to thank Scott and his team, and was it Jessica from Eagle? Yep, and your folks. Thank you for your presentation. Very informative.
Thank you guys very much. And if anybody has any questions, Mike knows how to get a hold of me, so feel free.
All right, thank you again. And again, like I said, Scott, thank you for the fine presentation. Bring us up to speed. Appreciate it very much. Moving along, we're going to the visitor section. Is there anybody in our audience tonight that would like to bring something to the commission that is not on our agenda?
And so once again, anybody who is in attendance via the Zoom meeting, if you wish to make public comment at this time on an item not listed on the agenda, please use the raise hand feature. I see none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Andrew. Moving along, I will take a motion to approve our agenda for tonight.
Your Honor, this is Commissioner Burr. I move that the Sturgis City Commission approve the agenda for March 24th, 2021 as presented.
I have a motion to approve our agenda. Do we have support?
Mr. Good will support that.
Thank you, sir. Roll call, please. Mr. Rhodes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Lippman, Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, sir. I will now take a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Your Honor, Commissioner Burr again. I move that the Sturgis City Commission approve the consent agenda for March 24th, 2021 as presented.
I have a motion by Commissioner Burr to approve the agenda. Do I have consent agenda? Do I have support?
Mr. Mayor, this is Commissioner Good. Before I offer my support. I would like to ask that a letter of appreciation be sent to Elizabeth Denman for her serving on the DDA board. And then I will support that consent agenda.
Okay, Michael, did you get that? See no problem sending a letter?
We'll take care of it.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
We got it.
All right, thank you. Roll call, please. Could we have support for the agenda with that change that Commissioner Good had of the letter?
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
and Mayor Heil.
Yes,
Motion carried.
thank you, sir. Next item on our agenda is the unfinished business. There are none, so we will move to the new business portion of our meeting tonight. And the first item under our new business is a recreation passport grant resolution. Michael.
Thank you, Your Honor. So the commission is aware that back on February 10th, they authorized staff to proceed with developing a site location and preliminary design for a splash pad. Last year, we were going to undertake this project, and of course, COVID-19 got in the way. This year, we were really prompted because of an opportunity to apply for a DNR recreation passport grant. So there's some changes to the program, I think, which makes sense if we want to consider a splash pad to apply. The deadline, however, is April 1st. And so we put together, I think, a fairly aggressive timeline to do the work and include the community and getting input as well. So I included a memo in the packet, trying my best to summarize the committee's effort, and I'll go through highlights of that. We had 4 meetings. We had a kickoff meeting, a meeting to spend time talking about site location options, a design day where I think primarily we were talking about the splash pad itself and features, and then a meeting we're calling a wrap-up meeting to kind of get consensus on some issues to bring not only recommendations but considerations to the city commission in our effort to apply for the grant. We held the meetings virtually, obviously because of the times. We had a number of community members, city staff, commissioners attend. I would say that the attendance from the community was somewhat limited, although we had, different people each time. But we did do a number of different community engagement outreach activities. We had a community survey. We put out an email address to get some feedback, and then we also coordinated with the schools to do a student survey asking about their thoughts on themes and then some of the water features, and we had a pretty good response from that. For site location, we talked about a few different sites, but primarily Thurston Woods Park, Franks Park, and Oaklawn Terrace Park. There's quite a discussion about Franks Park. In a lot of ways, it provides an ideal site because it already has utilities, restrooms, seemingly enough parking. But one of the issues that we talked through quite a bit is how the parking for the splash pad might conflict with the soccer, rocket football, and travel soccer programs. And ultimately, I think that's why we went away from Franks Park, because I think there's a conflict that exists between these uses that isn't necessarily going to go away or can't be solved. And I would expect that as these programs grow and more kids are involved, that conflict would be ongoing. Most of the sites that we discussed had issues. I don't think we found a perfect site. So of course, making sure that we have enough parking, public restrooms, and having readily available utilities. And then of course, site constraints. These are all issues that were presented in most of the sites. The site that I think rose to the top and we spent most of the time discussing was Thurston Woods Park. And I think primarily because the site has other amenities and I think other complementing uses. But we still have issues with the site, particularly with restrooms and getting utilities there. And there's probably a really good reason why we don't have public restrooms there. And it's the cost of building structure and getting the utilities there. But I think there's also some issues related to parking and flow of the site if we were to place a splash pad. And I listed, I think, the major site issues, which I've mentioned: site circulation conflicts between vehicles and pedestrians, and then a lack of accessible connectivity to the Doyle Community Center and Enrichment Center, which we view as a potential issue because those facilities could serve as overflow parking, but there's really not a good way to get there, and certainly not an accessible way to get there. And maybe if we could, Andrew, could you bring up the site plan that was put together by Beardus?
Yeah, if you'll give me just a second, I'll be able to.
Sure. The design of the splash pad and the elements itself, the group, I think, took information from the student survey to develop a theme. I guess I would call that a nature theme. The shape of the splash pad is in the shape of at least the Michigan mitten. And there's quite a bit of discussion on that too. We spent some time, and as I mentioned in the memo, for a couple of reasons, we think universal design is really just a smart way to go about designing almost anything. But also it's a key component of the grant for scoring. And so Holly Carmichael, CEO of GT Independence, has been helping us and actually spent a lot of time going through the detail and trying to look at the splash pad, at least the concept design, in context of the 7 principles of universal design. So I feel pretty good about that. The splash pad, I believe, is about 2,500 square feet. And you can see, and this is, keep in mind, this is preliminary and very conceptual. You can see the mitten shape of the splash pad and where we think the best location is, and that's the open area south of the water tower. Just to the west of that would be the location of the public restrooms, and that would service both the splash pad and Thurston Woods Park. Currently, we have portable bathrooms, porta-johns there, and those are placed seasonally. So currently there's, and I think in my memo I said 32 spaces, but I believe there's actually 35 spaces. And what we've proposed is close to 80 spaces. What we would do is just expand on the existing parking and add a row and then a drive lane. Part of what I think would happen in this concept is you would eliminate the drive, the loop itself, so that you're kind of eliminating to the extent that you can the pedestrian traffic that would go from the park to the splash pad. But one of the challenges in doing that is you still need access, some type of service access to the water tower. the access that you see coming off of the parking lot between the Doyle Enrichment Center, that may be a challenge to bring it in that way, because the berm actually extends south, and I think there's some grade issues. You might have to actually move that access a little bit to the south, but you can see we also have sidewalk connectivity to sidewalk that's currently existing at the enrichment center. And it's hard to really predict how much parking that you would need. And I'm not sure we would want to build all the parking that we would need. And so part of the idea is having some overflow parking, and we could use particularly the Doyle parking lot in the part of the year that we certainly have less use of the facility and therefore less parking. So I like the idea of being able to use something existing for overflow parking. And maybe some others could give me their opinion on the use of the existing parking lot, but it appears to me that during peak times on weekends when people are using park shelters, that I think the majority of those 35 spaces are used. And so if we're going to introduce something like a splash pad, we at least have to consider, what that means for parking. And I think what would happen is that if we don't present something that really manages parking, people are just going to park all over the place. And I think they'll do that first before they park at the Doyle. So first they'll park wherever they can on the grass and surrounding area, and then they would park over at the Doyle if they can't find a place. We've done some cost estimating, and we've adjusted the project, the splash pad itself, a little bit to try to keep the splash pad at around $280,000. And that would be just the splash pad itself. Pretty expensive cost to be able to get utilities there, water and sewer. That's about $168,000. We have electric available, and you can see the cost in the memo at $5,000 estimated. And then the estimate that we have for parking lot expansion, drive improvements, modifications, sidewalk connectivity, restrooms, possible storm retention, and some other amenities, that's just under $500,000. And again, I went to Viridis quickly because I didn't anticipate that we'd get into a lot of other site changes, but I wanted to have more of a complete plan to present to the commission. And so I went to Viridis quickly just so that we could look at a concept and get some scale of what that cost would be. There's quite a bit of work that would have to be done, to hone that concept and then get some better numbers. But I would consider the $500,000 as a conservative number with room for changes. One thing to consider, though, is that if we are expanding the parking and adding a restroom, it's not simply an upgrade for the splash pad, but for the park itself. I think while this is one of our more popular parks, I think it would become even more popular. So with that, I thought it might be good. We have Angie Monroe here, and I thought she could just do an overview of the splash pad itself and the water features. I did include in the memo some estimates of what the water and sewer fees would be, and she could even talk a little bit about maintenance of the splash pad. The fees are going to be the major new additional cost, and it's really based on assumptions of how much water the splash pad is using. There's some things that you can do to make sure that you're not really wasting water and people aren't playing on it. There's activation controls and sequencing. We talked in our design meeting quite a bit about features that use a lot of water. The concept that we're proposing, I think, is more economical. They have these splash buckets that are pretty popular. There's different sizes. And I will say that I should say that the group, I think, really preferred the splash buckets because they are popular among kids because they release quite a bit of water. But those features really make a difference on how the volume of water that you're using. And I'll just give you an example. I did some rough math, and there's a 35-gallon bucket. The difference between that and what we've proposed, it's called the Twin Splash, and we might even be able to show a video of that. That's, I think, 11 gallons per minute. But the annual cost is about a $4,000 difference. Again, there's a lot of assumptions that you see in the memo on, hours of operation, the season itself. But I guess logic would hold that if you're going to use something that uses more gallons, it's probably going to cost more. But those are pretty important items that I think we should be considering. So with that, I'll have Angie, she can share her screen and, well, it is. Okay. So you can, Angie, take it away.
Angie, before I have you start your presentation, I have a hand raised by Commissioner Klinger. Commissioner Klinger, would you like to ask your question?
Well, let's go ahead and let Angie present, and then I'll just ask questions at the end.
All right, thank you, sir. Angie, would you go ahead and do your presentation?
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Angie Monroe with Vortex Aquatic Structures, and I'm just going to go through the design a little bit here. So obviously you can see my screen. All right. So this design is what we've come up with as far as trying to make sure we, provided what the students wanted, what the community wanted, things like that. So it is a shape of a mitten. And just to quickly just go through some of the features here. This over here is the activation bollard. So the splash pad will only run when that is pressed. So if the hours are set from 9 to 5 and anyone comes in on off hours, it will not run. And when it is during on hours, if no one is on that pad pressing that activation button, no water will be dismissed. So if people leave and there's no one there, then there will be no water. So here, activation bollard. Moving up a little bit, this area is a little bit less intense type of water features. This taller green feature here is called our aquadome. It has bell-shaped water effect, so children and splash padders can hide underneath it. Moving this way would be our fish number 1. He is supposed to look like a Michigan trout here. It's a gentle water effect. It rotates 360. And a lot of our features have this thicker seaflow. And when the sun shines on it, all these colors will come down, as you can see a little bit on the concrete. So this little guy also has some seaflow here, super interactive. And then moving forward a little bit, this feature is called our rainbow feature. Light mist sprays. And as you move through the splash pad, the sprays start to get a little bit more intense. Pull over here. Butterfly feature, again, really interactive, more seaflow, pod spray on it. So when children press it, more water squirts and further down the pad. Some dumping oak trees here. So these oak trees are about 18 feet tall. Different times these buckets will dump. Another taller feature here is this it's called the silhouette fish. That guy is about 12 feet high. Pod spray on that as well, so it's interactive. If they press on the corner, the water will squirt further. This is our twin splash dumping bucket. It does have the ability to dump twice. So it'll give a big dump, and then as it rotates back, it gives a second dump. So it's a pretty cool feature. And as Mike was saying, you know, uses a lot less water than the big dumping bucket. We do know that the dumping bucket, you know, kids love the big dumping bucket, but this gives that, you know, is another big dumping bucket and gives that same effect where they're running towards it, you know, to congregate underneath it to wait for that big dump. This pine tree over here, he is about 14 feet tall. Water immenses down the sides of it, but the closer you get to the post, you can actually stand there and, you know, not get water on you. And then we have a couple of spray cannons here that are looking like horses, which was something that was high up on the student survey. This is just a top kind of view of that twin splash that we put your logo on. Another close-up shot of the fish number 1. And then an aerial shot here that just kind of gives you a better view of the placement of the features, the kind of the flow of the features where it starts, you know, less intense here, but as you move up towards the twin splash, it gets a little bit more of a team play type of area. This outer ring around here is what we call our, it's our 5-foot buffer. So parents, grandparents, or children that want to get out of the water can walk around this area and not be, you know, sprayed. Any of these features like the cannons, the fish, anything that rotates 360, it will rotate 360, but once it hits this area, there'll be no water. So it shuts off while it's in the dry zone, and then when it swings back around, the water starts to shoot again. So there's about 24 features on this splash pad and 2,500 square foot. And again, just another top view that shows these blue areas are showing exact, you know, this is where the water will be. So as you can see here, we're trying to keep all of the water inside the spray area, nothing on the spray free area, and everything would have a 2% drain slope towards the drain. So, and even if a little bit of water came out of here, off of here, from runoff or off of kids' clothes or anything, it's going to drain into the pad. And then again, you know, if it rained or anything like else, anything on that pad is going to go to the central drain location. This pad is now about 170 gallons per minute. So just by switching a couple features, the super splash, and we did have a couple other things on there, we were able to reduce the gallons per minute for the splash pad. Did want to show the twin splash video. Oh, what's going on? So it is in slow motion, so I apologize. It's a brand new feature for Vortex. It was just released last year, so as you can tell, this is a pretty early installed project. But this is in slow motion so that you can really see the double splash. So.
Oh, yeah.
And again, it's only 11 gallons. It looks like a lot more, even when you are looking, you know, at, you know, next to the super wave. It does give a big splash. 11 gallons or 35 gallons, kids don't care. Any questions on any of the features or the design?
Commissioner Klinger? Do you have are you ready for your questions?
Yeah, it's gonna end up being directed at Mike. If we could bring back up the preliminary view from the aerial view of the parking lot and everything, the concept for that.
Sure. Should be able to see that.
Yes, I can see it now. So just questions on the detention. I'm seeing a dotted line here. Are we moving the detention? Is that what those are indicating? Or what are those connecting lines between the detention basins there?
Yeah, the one that goes to the detention that's behind the enrichment center probably shouldn't be there. I think there might be a connection in between, but really that's just kind of, we wanted just to identify an area where we could have detention. So what we'll have to do is for any asphalt that new expanding or asphalt that we're expanding, we'll have to figure out how much new surface, and then for what we remove, we'd be able to get a credit for that. So really, we don't know how much detention that we're going to need, but I wanted to at least identify areas where we could put it. And I really don't like the idea of putting it in the area that's just, I'd say, east of the parking lot expansion and south of the splash pad. I'd like to leave that area open, or possibly think about placing park shelters or something like that.
I can understand that. I guess I was just asking about the eastern detention basin that you have here on the eastern side of the parking expansion. I was just looking at this wraparound that you guys have designed here with the double loop, just thinking about traffic congestion and that kind of situation there. And if there's any way to kind of curve away from that and create, two single lanes, two single identifiable lanes to avoid that, even if it means expand. I know we have recently installed trees in like the last 15 years, 10, 15 years here on the southern side of the road path that leads up to the parking lot, but I'm just seeing this this wraparound where the parking lot entrance is could be very troublesome for I mean, at any point probably this thing will definitely be popular for more than just a short term.
Yeah, definitely more vetting of the parking lot has to take place.
Yeah, I guess that's all I'm looking at as well. And then I guess I'm kind of understanding that that circle is the tree that was formerly there. Is that what that is?
Well, now there's a tree there, and I just didn't really want to have to cut it down.
I understand.
There are a bunch of new trees that would be impacted with the expansion. But from my perspective, I'd like to minimize the amount of trees that we're removing. And that one in the center there is a very large tree.
It absolutely is. It's one of the older trees in town. I guess the only other question I had was, from I guess what I'm seeing here is that there's a path connection that leads into Thurston Woods. I'm assuming that's probably right where the Porta Johns are currently residing. And is that just, are we turning that into green space there where we cut off the parking lot before and turn it into that like hook shape on the north end?
Yeah, and you wouldn't really, I don't think you'd have to hook it as much, but there is a service drive. It's hard to tell if it's
I see it.
a path or not, but we would want to maintain that because I think that's how we access the wells. But yeah, you're right. The area that's south of that, between that area and the parking lot, we would just remove that asphalt and have an open area. Right now, we don't have, a direct connection to the asphalt path. So what's created there is an accessible connection to the path, and that's pretty close to the path that connects and gets you to Trojan Timbers.
Are we able to, I mean, I know cost is cost, but are we able to add another path at the other end of the parking lot, near the southern end of it, that leads into the park as well? I mean, I'm just, again, this is a congestion thought, ease of access. If someone's maybe not going to the splash pad and not trying to park all the way to the ends, they only want to run or walk, they want to access it easily. I mean, sure, people walk over the grass, but I'm just thinking of, full accessibility.
We could run a sidewalk all the way down the parking lot and then connect it to the path on the south side.
I mean, is that a big addition of cost?
Well, I don't know what that would be, but
I mean, if it's,
it becomes, it's one of those projects where you think you're just gonna change something out. Next thing you know, you're renovating the entire entire room.
We're already changing quite a bit as it is.
Yeah.
Is that the northernmost road that goes directly behind the Doyle Center? Is that not complete already, or is that are you guys just identifying where that road path that leads behind?
It's just identifying where it's at. It's already there. Okay. So the drive that comes back, it just turns northeast and accesses the rear of the Doyle.
Yeah.
The connection that goes up and goes to the water tower. I mean, part of that exists, but you can't get there from the parking lot to the drive right now.
And then the last question, is that a long sidewalk connection that leads over to the Doyle Center parking lot or secondary parking lot? Is that just like for overflow parking, usage? Is that basically what we're doing that for, to connect the sidewalk there?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is the thought is being able to use it for overflow parking, but I also think, whether it's Enrichment Center or the Doyle, and maybe this is too ambitious, but someone could walk from Thurston Woods Village. They could walk, from that area over to the splash pad.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to kind of clarify what each of these,
Sure.
These would mean. And then the unisex restrooms that we would have, it says 4 stalls in there. I mean, I take it just simple restrooms, nothing.
It's as simple as you can get, and this is actually a kit that you can buy, and I believe that 150 is for 4 unisex restrooms would be the least expensive model.
Sounds easy enough. That sounds like right up our alley. I guess that's all the questions I had. Thank you for all that.
Thank you, Commissioner Klinger. Vice Mayor, hang on a second, John. Vice Mayor Mullins.
Yeah, just very quick, I wanted to thank everybody that was involved in this from the community. I know Holly Carmichael's here. Holly Kaiser was involved. I know a couple of the commissioners, Klinger, Burr, happened to step in. But anyway, thank you guys for your time. It was really cool to come up with a project like this and get the community support. The question I have for Angie, I guess, is on the bucket. I almost forgot what I was going to ask. The bucket options. There's 11 gallon and 35 gallon. That's per hour or per pour. I'm not sure what that is exactly, but is there an option in between? And I think that Mike said that it was a difference of like $4,000 in operating cost a year between the 11 and the 35. Is there something in between?
Just like what you kind of see on the I'm gonna share my screen here again. What you see on the oak trees, those type of buckets would be smaller. There's nothing in it goes from the 11 to the 35 as far as the bigger buckets. We do have the smaller, but nothing in between that. So the 11, and it is 11 gallons per minute. So every time it dumps 11 gallons.
Okay.
And it will, I mean, we can set it up differently, but typically when they press the activator, those bigger buckets will dump every sequence, meaning it will probably, if we set it up for a 4-minute sequence, it's probably going to dump twice. It's not going to really do a 11 gallon, every minute. It's probably going to be, it'll probably do two dumps in that. So it would be, 5.5 gallons or whatever per cycle, because it's not dumping every minute. It takes it a couple minutes to fill and then it dumps.
Okay. And if I didn't say to you as well, thank you for your time.
Sure, thank you.
There is a larger bucket, Vice Mayor Mullins. So there's a 55 gallon. And I think, I mean, Angie can correct me, but I think they may have come up with a smaller bucket because 55 gallons is a lot of water use. So they came up with the 35. And then there's also the 11.
You're right. And especially for a flow through system, 35 gallons is a lot and does take up a lot of water usage. So they did, Vortex last year, thought that this would be a nice feature to add, because the dumping bucket is our #1 requested feature. The big ones, and this one is starting to become very popular.
If Vice Mayor Mullins is done, then I'm going to move to Commissioner Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you all are probably aware, I'm not the biggest fan of the splash pad. However, I'm certainly not in a position to vote no when everybody else wants this issue. But at Vice Mayor Mullins, I was surprised didn't get into the numbers. First of all, I'd like to ask Angie Monroe if Vortex has an idea as to how many days per year in Michigan is the average usage of the splash pad.
So we average the use of a splash pad in Michigan about 84 days. And that's, that obviously can change, better or worse, but 84 is the number that we use when we're trying to give a calculation to budget how much water is going to be used for that pad.
Okay, so over the course of 10 years, that's 840 days. And with the contingency of 15%, we're talking about $1.3 million for the project based on current estimates. 1.3 million divided by 840 means over the course of 10 years, it's $1,547 per day. Just thought I'd throw that out there for you to all look at. That's based on $30,000 a year for the water and sewer bills. And the construction cost comes out to more like $1,900 and some dollars a day. So for $1.3 million, you're going to get 84 days of use. Not to say that the children won't enjoy it. It won't be a nice feature to have in the community. But when you're talking just plain dollars and cents, and I'm surprised again that Vice Mayor Mullins didn't join in with this, but nonetheless, it just seems like I don't know. I'm not going to say it's a it's just a use of the money for the betterment of the community. And I don't know how you can quantify goodwill or the benefit of the splash pad. If you could quantify that and tell me that every day we're going to get back $1,800 in goodwill, then it's certainly money well spent. But you know, we're looking at budget amendments. We're looking at trying to raise money in the community to support this project, and I just think that we have to think seriously as to whether or not that's the best use of our resources. Not to say that I'm going to disagree when the vote comes down, but I wanted to voice my opinion. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
If I may, real quickly,
Yes, go ahead.
I did not ask any of those questions, Commissioner Good, because I've been involved in the committee meetings all along, so I'm kind of aware of what's going on, and I think that it's fully justified for the use of, you know, for the kids in town and what use it's going to get. I think the cost is, I mean, it's a large cost. I wish it didn't cost as much, but that's the cost to do business and have some fun in our city.
Okay, Commissioner Burr.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I guess this question's to Angie. Are there any water parks that you know of that are city-owned that charge admission?
Yes, there are quite a few, and we call them pay for play, in Michigan, in the Midwest, and several in Michigan. There are some that are very minimal costs, like $1, or by donation. So it just depends on, you know, what you want to do in the community. I've seen it both ways. You know, most are free, but there are some that are pay for play.
I like kind of assumed that, and it's to Commissioner's good point is it would be nice to capture some funds back so we could have maybe someday have an endowment or something like that. But if you play soccer, you have to pay for it. If you play football, rocket football, you have to pay for it. Nothing, very little is free. And as much as I'd like to see everything for free, that'd be great. But as it was brought up, there's an awful lot of things coming up. Maybe we could look at something like you say, $1 to get in, $1 a person or whatever. I don't think that would stretch anyone's pockets. If you want to go to Camp Fort Hill for the day, they charge you that fee too. So that might be something to look at in the future, near future, but that might alleviate a little bit of that cost. And the other, that's all I have for you, Angie. Thank you very much for your time. The other question too, I'm asking Mike, isn't this just a conceptual drawing at this point, just so we can get our DNR grant in on time? I'm not talking about the water park setup, but the parking lot setup and all the amenities.
Yes, sir. I wanted to at least present something conceptual, but there's really more work that has to be done in kind of vetting whether that makes sense. There's a couple other options maybe on the service access to the water tower. And so the answer is yes.
All right, well, you were asking about the access road. Looks like a walk, but it is a road that services well number 2, or the concession number 2,
park shelter.
The shelter number 2. Having a senior moment, hang on. And I agree with Commissioner Klinger about the sidewalk down the parking lot. If we want this truly accessible, handicap accessible, that would be a good item. We've had, back when I worked for the city, there were a lot of complaints. It was hard to get onto the walking path from the driveway because there weren't sidewalks that went across the grass. People with strollers and wheelchairs, it was a problem. So that's another good idea. But I don't want to take up a whole lot of time. You know, it's getting late already. So anything further, I guess I can talk to you or the group later about that. So I have no further questions on that issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Burr. Commissioner Wiki.
Just real quick, wanted to add my 2 cents, mostly for the commission, just so they can hear my thoughts. You know, thinking of towns like Three Rivers and Coldwater that have natural water features that are, you know, great for the community. We don't have that in Sturgis, and so we have to create water features and to have a draw here in Sturgis when it comes to hot days. So I'm all for it, and you know, if we can recoup costs, fine. If we can't, I think it's still worth it. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Just a second, John. Michael, City Manager.
Okay, that's an old one. I'm good.
Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Klinger.
Yeah, I just had, I guess, maybe a couple quick questions, probably directed at Angie. Angie, if we did, you know, take on the suggested idea from Commissioner Burr of a pay-for-play setup, how is that fee collected for the splash pad, per person, so to say, or per visit? And I mean, does that mean we end up putting up barricades around it and some sort of access point and a walkthrough with bollards, probably with a rotating arm and a prepaid position? Yeah.
So the splash pads that are pay for play in Michigan, there is typically a person, an employee sitting there taking the funds.
Wow.
Yeah.
The other thing I've seen too, though, is, you know, you could rent the splash pad, you know, people could reserve the splash pad for a day for parties and things like that, which, you know, but without, you know, probably having a fence around it, I don't know how you can really keep others that weren't, you know, there for that day out. So yes, it's typically a booth with someone manning that booth from the open hours.
Okay. And then I guess the only other question about the paper. The other question for the paper play would be how long does it take to return on investment, so to say, get the ROI out of it using a pay for play setup? I mean, is it really like something that works? I mean, does the balance play out well?
The one of the splash pads in Michigan, which is Blue Herring Bay, they have a pay for play, but they also have concession stands, and that's where they're getting, you know, the main money is from that. It's only a couple bucks to go, but for them, they have a huge concession stand, so they make their money back. Another one that does not have a concession stand, they, you know, are not, so to say, like breaking even every year, but they, you know, are using that money for upgrades and things like that for the splash pad.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All this discussion with regard to the design and with regard to the various features that'll be involved in the splash pad are well deserved. However, the agenda item regards whether or not we want to apply for a recreational passport grant and it requires a resolution. And I think it's time maybe that we move forward. And I would like to make a motion, Mr. Mayor,
Okay,
that the Sturgis City Commission approve the 6-year capital plan included in the fiscal year 2021 budget.
okay. Before I ask for a second, as we've done in the past, Andrew, will you see if there's anybody in our audience that would like to make comment on this agenda item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, for anybody who's attending via the Zoom meeting, if you wish to make public comment on this item, please use the raise hand feature at this time and I'll recognize you. I see none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Good to approve the capital plan, including the fiscal year 2020, 2021. Do I have support?
Commissioner Burr supports.
Thank you, sir. We have support by Commissioner Burr. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Littman, Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
No.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
In support of every parent in the city, yes.
and Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. And there's a second motion on this also.
Mr. Mayor, this is Commissioner Good. I'd like to move that the Sturgis City Commission adopt the Recreation Passport Grant Program Resolution of Authorization.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the recreational passport grant and resolution of authorization. Do we have support?
Second, by Commissioner Klinger, support.
Okay, support by Commissioner Klinger. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Good,
Yes.
and Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you all for being patient with this first agenda item. We'll move down to the next item, which is the airport fuel tank removal and replacement. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. Earlier this year, the airport's 100 low lead underground fuel tank failed to pass a pressure test. This basically means that it wasn't holding full pressure. While the nature of the failure and lack of additional leak detection faults tells us that this is probably not on the top of the tank and not expected to be an environmental concern, we can no longer put fuel into the tank until the situation is resolved one way or the other. We can, however, and we are still operating the pump with the existing fuel in it. I can tell you that's about half full right now. We've had a similar failure to gain pressure on this tank back in 2011. We were able to, at that time, resolve it fairly simply. And we've been able to pass subsequent tightness tests or pressure tests with the tank on a regular basis until this year. According to our records, the tank was installed in 1972. It was certainly installed sometime in the 1970s, but our records indicate 72. They tell us the typical useful life of a tank is around 30 years for an underground storage tank. In discussing the issue with R.W. Mercer, who does most of our fuel tank maintenance, we could look to attempt repair on the tank. However, it would require us to expose the top of the tank. Obviously, that includes earthwork and a lot of guesswork as to whether we could actually effect repair once we were able to remove that. So it would be a bit of an exploration type of operation to try and repair the tank. Due to the age of the tank and obviously the uncertainty involved with being able to find the issue, we pivoted towards looking at tank replacement. I consulted with the city's airport engineer, members of our airport advisory committee, as well as R.W. Mercer to help kind of put together a plan or a concept for how we would want to bid out tank replacement. I'll note that RW Mercer was consulted, but they were not part of the final writing of the spec because they are one of the bidders. I wanted to make note of that. They helped kind of help me understand, did we want to go above ground or underground placement? Can we reuse certain elements of the airport fuel system, those types of things. But they did not have input on the final specification. I did end up developing a specification for replacement with a 10,000 gallon above ground fuel tank. That specification was included in your packet. We identified replacement of the system with the above ground tank to give easier monitoring of potential issues, as well as easier maintenance on the tank. It seems that most people are going to above ground storage tanks versus underground storage tanks where they have the space to do so. If we're replacing the tank, it's also a necessity to remove the existing underground storage tank. We contacted EnviroLogic for a quote for administration of the environmental and removal services. That quote is included in your packet and comes to $28,455. We're requesting a bid waiver to contract with EnviroLogic on this portion of the project. Bids for the supply and installation of the above ground fuel tank were accepted. We received 2 bids, one from RW Mercer, the other from Sparling Corporation. The below bid tab does have a modification. We received contact from Sparling. They had additional costs for site plan that were not included in their base bid when submitted. That adds $10,650 to their base bid. It still leaves them at the low bidder for a total of $176,650. With the alternate, that comes to a you can see the alternate is $29,800 for installation of a new fuel cabinet. We are recommending that. And then we're also recommending a contingency budget of $22,500 with the amended base bid from Sparling Corporation. Total project is $257,405. That includes removal, the replacement, and the contingency. Replacement of fuel tanks was not budgeted to happen until fiscal year 2025. Obviously, this is a big project. We plan on foregoing the terminal building bathroom rehab project that was budgeted for this year, as well as a lighting conversion project. We did have to do some tree removal work. We completed that recently, and that was actually came in under budget. So our total available capital to date is $52,500. Obviously, even with these funding sources, we're quite a bit short of what we need, and we're going to be asking for a budget amendment of $210,000 from capital reserve. That'll come with Holly's budget amendments later in the agenda. Happy to try and answer any questions you may have at this time.
Okay, are there any questions from the commissioner? Commissioner Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It just seems odd. The current underground tank is like 49 years and the life expectancy is 30. And it's not budgeted for replacement until 2025. Seems like somebody missed the mark there. But nonetheless, I think the above ground tank is probably a great option. It seems to make more sense than trying to repair that underground tank. So I think it's a good choice. And I would like to thank Andrew Cook for all his hard work with the airport advisory committee and the other parties that are involved in this. That's all, Mr. Mayor. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Good. Any other questions for Andrew on this agenda item? Seeing none, Andrew, would you like to see if there's anyone in our audience that would have a question on this item?
For those attending via the Zoom meeting, if anyone has a public comment or question on this agenda item, please use the raise hand feature. I see none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Andrew. Again, I will open up, see if there's any questions from the commissioner, from the commission. Seeing none, what say the commission? We have two motions on this agenda item. I will take a motion on the first item.
Your Honor, this is Commissioner Burr. I move that the Sturgis City Commission approve a bid waiver for and the quote of Envirologic for underground storage tank removal in the amount of $28,455.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion by Commissioner Burr to approve the removal of the tank by Envirologic. Do I have support?
Mr. Good will support that, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Roll call, please. Mr. Rhodes?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, sir. And what say the commission on the second motion?
Mr. Mayor, before you get to that, I'll just note that the amount will be amended to $206,450.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you.
206,450.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move the Sturgis City Commission approve the bid with alternate one of Sparling Corporation for the airport above ground fuel tank and installation in the amount that Andrew just gave us as presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Good. Do I have support?
I will support Commissioner Burr for the
Thank you, sir.
$206,450.
Thank you, sir.
Good job, Commissioner
There's
Burr.
no
Good
senior
job.
moment there, is there? Thank you, sir.
Short-term memory isn't what it used to be.
I wrote it down.
Roll call, please. Mr. Rhodes?
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
And I just turned the page. There is a third motion on this for the contingency.
Andrew, is that 22.5 still the same?
Yes. Yep, I'll leave it there.
Then I'd move the Sturgis City Commission approve a contingency budget of $22,500 for the airport fuel tank project.
I have a motion by Commissioner Good. Do I have support?
I'll support Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, sir. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
and Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you all. The next item on our agenda is the Stapleton Industrial Park Lift Station Task Order. Andrew?
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. The Sturgis Improvement Association recently approved purchase contract for 65 plus acres at Stapleton Industrial Park as part of a potential development identified as Project White. This project, should it move forward, is expected to result in significant new taxable value and job creation. Stapleton Park currently has sewer service to the end of the end of the parcel line, not quite the cul-de-sac. Barry did correct me on that, but I'll put up a map here really quick so you can see that as well. This was included in your packet. Hopefully you can see my cursor. You can see where the sewer line runs. This is the end of the parcel line. The cul-de-sac actually goes into the parcel here if you've ever been out there, but that's where the sewer line terminates. Sewer at this location is extremely shallow. I believe I've heard Barry or Tom tell me 4 feet, but it's basically within the minimum required cover for a sewer line. So gravity sewer out farther west on the parcel is is infeasible. And in order to serve the parcel or serve the property correctly, we'll need to install a lift station at the property line. The proposed project that we're looking at, the proposed development project, has a very aggressive timeline for completion. The lead time to design, permit, and install the lift station necessitate that we move quickly in order to kind of keep up with them. Included in your packet is task order number 97 from Fleece and Vandenbrink for design phase engineering services for lift station. The task order is for $48,500. As you see in your manager's report, this project is not budgeted for the current fiscal year. Design costs for the task order will be paid from the wastewater fund, and per Holly and the type of fund that we're dealing with, a budget amendment would not necessarily be required for this change. This is extremely preliminary numbers from talking with F&V and Tom Sikorsky. They believe that the project cost is expected to be in the range of $750,000 to $1 million for a lift station of this size. We're going to be looking at creating a new local development finance authority district, which would allow us to capture taxes and help pay for this improvement. In order to reimburse the cost for the actual installation of the project. Design work for the lift station obviously is going to be approved, or does need to be approved in advance of the project being finalized. We have a purchase contract. This isn't a done deal for a number of reasons, but I would say it's about as close to a done deal as it can be without actually being done. The lift station is obviously necessary for any future project that would be here. So if in a worst case scenario, the project did not move forward, we would have the design and be able to work off of that for a future project as well. Happy to try and answer any questions. I should note that Kathy Knapp is also here to help talk about this project. It is one that she's been working on and helping us to bring here to Sturgis. So.
Okay, I have Commissioner Burke.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. So, Andrew, is there more property that's going to be purchased for this, or is it going to be on those two spaces, the large spaces in front of the Rehal factory?
Here, I'll bring back up the parcel map and I'll kind of show you. So they're purchasing everything in this tan shaded area is what's going to be purchased. So they're looking at one initial site with potential for future growth in this area and use of the rest of the property for their development. I'm sorry, I don't want to get into too much detail at this point, but as we're still working with the project. But
right, do you know about approximately how many acres that is?
I think I said 65 plus, so I want to say 65 to 67, somewhere in there.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yep. Commissioner Mullins, or excuse me, Vice Mayor Mullins.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was going to ask the same question about that. If that was all being purchased, then you answered that question, so thank you. The other thing was on the Local Development Finance Authority District to capture the tax increment. Can you explain that a little bit to me? I don't really know what that is. Maybe Kathy would be helpful. I'm not sure, but is that only going to be assessed to this new company, or would that be for all companies in the area that use that sewer? How is that captured?
It works a little bit like a brownfield or a DDA, where you set up the district, and then any increase in taxable value in that district, you can capture the change, and then that can be used to do certain things within the district. In this case, it's mostly tied to public infrastructure and things like that. So a lot of communities will use an LDFA to help set up their industrial park. And when a business comes in, obviously there's increase in taxable value. That increase, the difference can be captured and used to fund infrastructure improvements like this or other necessities to make the project work.
So there's not an additional tax to the properties, then it's just capturing any additional that would have been going to one area and putting it into another area to pay something else, right?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. It's a way to almost dedicate, and we can capture, obviously we would be capturing city taxes, but there's the ability to capture some other taxing entities as well. Not all of them, but some of them. So we're able to capture a little bit more tax money and put it for the benefit of this area.
Okay, and that benefit could come from other properties as well, not just theirs, this new one? It would
Right. So we set the district, and typically you want to you set the district, and then you do improvements that benefit that district. So, for example, we would probably set the district for this entire industrial park. So not just the parcel that's to be sold here, but this entire area. And then as things develop here, or if there's an addition here or improvements to here, and those taxes change, we're able to capture those over the life of the LDFA as well.
Okay. Do you have any idea, if we're spending $750,000 to $1 million on this, what kind of time frame it takes for recouping any of this kind of stuff? I mean, is there any figures or anything? I mean, it's just based on.
I've run some rough numbers, and I really will want. I'll be kind of tying into this a lot closer as we present an LDFA and get to that point. There's certainly some things we'll need to know about the buildings themselves and how much tax they're going to potentially generate. But I would say we're in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 years recouping on that project cost, the 750 to $1 million.
Okay, cool.
Like I said, I'll have better numbers as we present the LDFA, but that's my early look at it.
Very good. Thank you, Andrew.
Commissioner Good was waving at me before Andrew put up his picture or his screen saver or shot for us. Commissioner Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As was stated in the staff report, this particular project will benefit into the future for anything that may occur there later, and is also a crucial part of the development of Project White. They need to see that sewer will be in place for them when their project is underway and completed. And as Andrew had indicated, the deal isn't done yet, but it's as close as you can get. And even if the deal falls through, if this is a bid operation, we always have the right to refuse any and all bids, so we don't commit ourselves to spending that money, but we do commit ourselves to authorizing the expenditure of that money so that the purchase of the property can be completed. And upon that completion of the purchase and the beginning of the project, we're ready to be underway. Is that correct, Andrew? Is that a decent way to look at this, or is that convoluted?
A decent way to look at it. The only, I guess, clarification is we would probably be asking F&V to start design just as soon as possible. So it may even be before final ink to paper.
Right. So we're spending money on the design, but that design doesn't go away.
Right. That's
and
correct.
So once it's designed, we can run into the engineering and the construction after that, so that if Project White becomes inviolate, then we still have the design features there.
That's correct.
Okay. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I yield.
Thank you, Commissioner Good. I do not see any other hands raised by the commission. Andrew, would you see if there's anyone in our audience that has a comment?
Yes, for those attending via the Zoom meeting, once again, if you wish to make public comment on this agenda item, please use the raise hand feature. I see none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Andrew. Kathy, would you like to add anything to this?
Andrew did a great job of explaining. We're looking forward to being able to share more detail in the future.
All righty, thank you. What say the commission on this agenda item?
Mr. Mayor, this is Commissioner Good. As your representative on the SIA and the EDC, I'd like to move that the Sturgis City Commission approve task order number 97 with Place and Vanderbrink for design engineering for the Stapleton Industrial Park lift station in the amount of $48,500 as presented.
Thank you, sir. Do I have support?
Second that. Commissioner
All right.
Klinger.
Thank you, Commissioner Klinger. We have support. Roll call, please. Mr. Rhodes.
Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes, for more jobs.
Vice Mayor Mullen,
Yes.
and Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to the next item, the South Nottawa Street All-Season Road. Andrew.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners. The Sturgis Economic Development Corporation recently approved a purchase contract for property in Dresser Industrial Park. Potential 60-plus acre development identified as Project Black is looking to locate at this site. So very similar to our last agenda item, another large-scale development, this time down at Dresser Industrial Park. The project, should it move forward, is also looking to result in significant new taxable value and job creation. This project also has a very aggressive timeline for completion and involves multiple parcels at the industrial park. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again here. This should have been in your packet as well, but so you can see it. This kind of outlines the parcels that they're considering as part of the project. And then also the element that we were here to discuss today, the extension of an all-season road on South Nottawa Street. So you can see that currently there's all-season road from the State Highway M66 down Bojan Road, down to the cul-de-sac here on Bojan, and then also a short run south on South Nottawa, just south of Borough Tools drive entrance on South Nottawa. One of the things this project would require is all-season road to be constructed from this point down south to the edge of this parcel here, the 7.8 acre parcel that you're seeing on the map. That's approximately 900 feet south of that drive. The road is under the jurisdiction of St. Joseph County Road Commission, and as we've been talking with the Road Commission recently on this project, they informed us, really Kathy, of a unique opportunity. She brought that to us. Road Commission is going to it has an agreement with Reith Riley to use some of their property for a project they're doing on the toll road. And in the agreement with the Road Commission for its use, Reith Riley is going to be improving South Nottawa in that area using that toll road asphalt mix. That work's going to be starting here fairly soon, April 1st to the 6th. County Road Commission offered to have Reith Riley put together a quote for 2 additional inches of asphalt on that 900-foot stretch of South Nottawa. That would make it an all-season road. Road Commission and city staff, after kind of taking a look at what was involved and the expectation there, they put together kind of a not to exceed budget of $25,000. Since we put the packet out on Friday, we've had kind of further discussions with the Road Commission. The Road Commission has had further discussions with Reith Riley, and it appears that $25,000 number is going to be in line with what they're looking at. So we should have a pretty solid not to exceed budget there. County Road Commission is obviously asking the city to pay for this additional asphalt work. Again, this is not something that we're budgeted for, but there are some funds in the economic development section of the electric fund. We have some professional service funds as well as some other funds available. We'd be looking to use those for this project. Because it's not our road, we're more giving a contribution for a project to help facilitate this development. So as I talked with Holly, she felt it was appropriate to pull this from the Economic Development Fund rather than a road fund in this case. We also reached out to Sturgis Township to see if they'd be willing to contribute a portion of the amount based on the fact that they will share some of the tax revenue from the ultimate development due to a 425 agreement. There've been initial discussions. They're willing to discuss participation in the project, but obviously kind of moving quickly with this offer and everything involved. We haven't been able to reach any type of final agreement. We're recommending to move forward even without Sturgis Township participation, just because of the unique opportunity and the ability to get it done at what I think is a very reasonable cost. Again, obviously, this work would be completed in advance of the project being finalized, much like the other prospects we were discussing. It's still in the stages of being finalized, but it is as close as you're going to see a project come. But we do have a tight time frame with the fact that Reith Riley is going to be in the area doing the work. In a worst case scenario, we obviously have the all-weather road, which helps us facilitate any future developments that would occur at that 7.8 acre parcel. Kathy, I don't know if you wanted to add anything based on your discussions with the County Road Commission and kind of maybe, I forget when you presented us this opportunity, but I know it was kind of a last minute nice thing to do.
I think we found out about it on St. Patrick's Day. So if you believe in the luck of the Irish, it was certainly working for us that day. And you captured all the details perfectly. Again, Andrew, thank you.
Happy to answer any questions the commission might have on this agenda item.
Okay, any questions from the commission? Commissioner Burr.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. And you said, so Reith Riley needs the all-season road for their equipment, I take it?
No, they're actually doing some work on the toll road, and they're setting up an asphalt plant on South Nottawa. So they asked the road commission for the ability to set up their asphalt plant there. Road commission basically said, well, if you're setting up the asphalt plant and you want to use our road, for doing that, can you use some of the extra asphalt you have and repave South Nottawa? They agreed to that, and then when this came up, we're able to add an additional asphalt to that one area to make it an all-season road. Does that make sense? I hope I explained that. Okay.
Yes, it does. So that's just for future truck traffic, basically.
That's correct.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Burr. Commissioner Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Kathy Knapp. We've seen this all in black and white. And I think that this particular project down south is an extremely viable project. Once again, add additional jobs to the community. And once again, it requires forward thinking of the community in order to provide the proper infrastructure for the development of that property. And as their representative on the EDC, I've had an opportunity to be involved in some of the more intricate workings of the both Project Black and Project White. And I think that, we have an opportunity here to create these jobs. I just wish we had the people in the housing for all these jobs. But nonetheless, Mr. Mayor, in order to proceed with some alacrity, I would like to move that the Sturgis City Commission approve the asphalt work to improve South Nottawa Road as presented in an amount not to exceed $25,000.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Good. Before I ask for a second, Barry Cox, you had your hand raised. Did you want to make a comment?
Yes, Mayor, real quick to Andrew, did the commission or did the road commission suggest that they're going to be doing the shoulder work, gravel work once Niblock finishes this off, or is that Niblock's issue to address as part of their work?
I have not had discussions with the road commission. Kathy, did you get into that detail?
They did not get into that detail. So that's a question we need to pose then.
Yeah, they'll have to have some shoulder dressing if they're going to raise the road. And I'm just curious if Niblock's going to do it for the road commission, that's great. But I just didn't want us to see something later, I guess. But the price is good.
Barry, the one thing that the road commission did say to us is that if there were any costs that went beyond the not to exceed $25,000, that they would take care of those.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you, Bob. We have a motion on the floor from Commissioner Good to approve. Do we have support?
I'll support Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, sir. We have support by Commissioner Smith. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you all.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, I would like to present a very hearty thank you to both Kathy and Andrew. They've done a lot of work behind the scenes on both Project Black and Project White, and I'd like to thank them for all their hard work.
Thank you, Commissioner Good, for those words. The next item on our agenda is the budget amendment. Holly, you're up.
Thank you, Mayor, City Commissioners. Included in you have a revised page that was sent to you for the budget amendment. Andrew, did you want me to share my screen? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, you can go ahead. I should just note that was emailed out just before the meeting. The final revised version was sent out just before.
Okay. Okay, are you seeing the memo there on the screen?
Yes.
Just have a few items. This is a little different format. I have a feeling with all these things that Commissioner Mullins, if you could see my budget binder right now, I'm sure it looks quite a bit like yours. Anyway, I'm trying to keep track of our amendments as we go, but I just have a couple things to request today. In the general fund, this top section here, we're requesting to amend the budget for these two items. The first one, this purchase of the property, the 7.3 acres for the White Elephant expansion, it was actually approved in July of 2020. It was included. It was approved, and it fell just right in between. After our budget work sessions and before the final adoption, we approved it. We paid the earnest money. We actually did a budget amendment for the property at the time when we approved the purchase. However, by fiscal year end at September 30th, we had only paid the earnest money on the project, which was, I think, $5,000. Anyway, the project didn't close until March 4th of 2021, probably COVID related or whatever. But needless to say, in the adoption of the final budget for 2021, it was missed that we hadn't paid the balance of that purchase. So I need to request a budget amendment to include the balance of the purchase price on that property. And then the other item is the outdoor public fireplace project was not included in the original capital outlay plan. It probably will be a little bit less than this cost. However, it's just an estimate for the budget. So, and this project will be, I'm not amending the revenue at this time, but it should be covered partially through various grant sources. So those are the general fund budget amendments that are being requested. And again, down here, just keeping a running total for you on the amendments. The second fund has to do with, I wish that, Barry and we work closely together, and I'm always trying to get him to, wrap up all of his street projects by 9:30, but it just doesn't always happen that way. Rarely does it. And in this particular case, it didn't as well. And this has to do with is the East Geraldine project that was not completed as of last budget year. So last year, we had quite a bit budgeted. We had about $1.1 million budgeted for the Geraldine project. And we only spent really about 500,000 by the time the fiscal year ends. So we needed to carry that over. And then also in addition, increasing a little bit for the revised estimates for the East Congress Vinewood Avenue small urban project based on some revised figures that we had from Barry. And then going on, we have the airport fund that Andrew already talked about, increasing that budget by 210 for the, I realized I just put the wrong fuel tank in here, but it's for the 100 low lead fuel tank. And then the other item has to do with Sturgis Young Center for the Arts. You know, the freezer went out, the walk-in freezer. And so we have ended up getting quotes for replacing that unit and also disposal of the existing unit. This was not included in the capital budget. This was a mechanical failure. This freezer is very old and has had several different things done to it. We had a lot of trouble over the last few years with condensation and a good seal on the door. And the last thing that happened was the compressor failed. So we decided it was really time to replace that unit. So that's what this project is for. And then the last item to pay for both the airport project and the freezer for the Sturgis Young Center for the Arts is an additional transfer from the capital reserve to those funds to fund both of those projects.
Thank you, Holly. Are there any questions for Holly on the budget amendment? Commissioner Burr.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I see that up at the beginning, underneath the purchase of property and the outdoor public fireplace, the spent storage barn is missing. So that was dropped from the budget?
So it is not dropped from the budget. It's just that the estimate that I had in there initially that was included in this budget amendment, that it was actually not enough. And so what we decided to do was to bring back that budget amendment later when we actually bring back the full project so that we have final numbers for that.
So we bid it out and we received numbers back, but we're waiting for some estimates or quotes on electric. So we needed that number to be able to finalize it, but we still plan on moving forward with this year and hopefully at the next meeting with the storage shed or structure.
Okay, thanks. And the other question I had too was for Holly is the purchase of the property. 95, how much more did you say we have to pay for that?
That is the balance that had to be paid in this fiscal year.
Oh, it hasn't changed. It's just we didn't pay it from.
All we had paid in last fiscal year was the earnest money.
Okay.
I should have.
Okay. All right. That's all. Well, that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Burr. Commissioner Slater.
Sorry.
Sound like, no, go ahead, Commissioner Burr. Finish up with what you're going to say.
All right. Thank you. I did have one other thing for the a question too. On the street repair fund, you had originally budgeted 126,500, and of course it's gone up to 670,000. That was originally for Ivanhoe, Vinewood, Congress, and Farwell. Are we
Right.
still planning to do Farwell?
Yes, we are. And it's just East Congress and Vinewood.
So
On
Ivanhoe.
page 9 of my budget, it just says East Congress and Vinewood.
So we're not doing Farwell?
That is part of the small urban project now.
Well, it was on the capital and extraordinary expenses on 2020. So that was budgeted for 2021 for Ivanhoe, Vinewood, East Congress, and Farwell. So I just wondered, I had somebody a resident on Farwell ask about it because we talked about it last year and I said it was budgeted for this year and he wanted to know when that was going to happen.
Yeah, I think it's just think it's really just part of that intersection of Farwell, Congress and Farwell. It's sort of like the end of it, that project. I don't know if Barry still on the line or not.
Commissioner Burr, you said in the 2020
It's on,
budget?
I think what he's referring to is in the capital plan on page 43. The description on that says Ivanhoe / Vinewood / East Congress / Farwell.
Correct.
And on page 9 of the budget for 201, it says East Congress Street, Vinewood Avenue.
Yeah, that's a holdover because at one time we were looking at doing all the projects together. And I believe as we refined the small urban budget, we ended up with just Vinewood and East Congress.
Okay, do we have any estimated time where we might get to Farwell?
I think we could take a look and get back with you. I don't really want to put out, it's obviously not going to be this year, but potentially next year. I was just on Farwell. It's in poor condition. And of course, it's new to us, but yeah, it's in poor condition.
Was that brought into the city at the same time Vinewood was?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll give this resident your phone number to talk to you when he
okay.
when he gets his answer. So I said I'd get back with him, but all right, thank you.
All right,
That's all I have.
Yeah, and part of that, part of this increase is that, Commissioner Burr, that part of the increase of $670,000, a portion of that is for the, because the prices on the East Congress Vinewood Small Urban Project the estimates are coming in higher than what we had budgeted. So that's to try to cover some of that.
I'll explain that to him. Thank you.
I know he won't. I'm sorry.
He is very nice about it. So I don't think he'll be coming up to City Hall.
I think it took someone quite a while to get East Geraldine complete. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he said he's lived in the city for 77 years, so I guess he can wait a couple more, hopefully.
All right. Thank you, Commissioner Burr. Commissioner Klinger.
Yeah, I was just had a small question about the freezer that we were taking on. Is this a brand new unit, Holly, that was decided on, or some sort of
Yes,
unit?
this is a brand new unit.
Okay, is there a warranty backing it?
There is a warranty. I don't know what it is though.
Is there information that you have right in front of you?
No.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to get back with you on that.
Okay, I'm just
I might be before the end of the meeting. I might be able to find it, but.
Okay, I guess my only concerns about the warranty were what they would cover and, what our limitations are on it, so we can obviously keep an eye on it.
I know that in the process of looking for the replacement, we consulted with Creative Dining. So we used their resources and they hooked us up with, we did get quotes from several local vendors as well. But there was quite a long lead time on those freezers, and actually the low price, we had a actually shorter lead time. So we consulted with Creative Dining and trying to hook us up with a good resource to get that replacement.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
I might be able to find it before the end of the meeting, so.
Awesome. Thank you so much, that's all.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Mount.
Thank you, Your Honor. Holly, much appreciated these breakdowns. These are pretty cool to look at and go over. But I just have one question on the street repair fund.
Yep.
I'm missing something. I'm not sure what it is, but there's a difference in there in the beginning and projected ending fund balance of $617,000 plus, because you have in parentheses there was 402.
Right. I was anticipating your question.
Okay.
So and if you're looking at your budget, the one that you probably have there, they estimated the third column is up, so it was on page, and I can share my screen and show you if you'd like, but on, the previous budget, maybe I should just do that. Let me try here and see. Oh, I'm showing you the wrong one, but you'll get the gist. You can't, so I'm showing you the second page first, but this is actually the actual, these are not audited numbers and you haven't seen these numbers yet. But this is the actual 2020 numbers. So you see how the ending fund balance here is that $1,019,000 that I have on the budget amendment. So you haven't actually seen these numbers yet, okay? But
Okay.
what you actually saw in your budget at the time when it was approved was actually this one here. So when we approved the budget for 2021, we had an estimated column here of 930.20 and we had an ending fund balance of 402. Right. But we were expecting to spend $1.5 million. And so what I just showed you on the other screen was that we spent quite a bit less than this because the project wasn't complete. It carried forward to the new year.
Okay.
And so if I had left the 402 on the budget amendment page, it would have looked really funny because it would have shown a negative fund balance by making this amendment. So that's why I changed those. The other ones I've left them the same as they have been in the budget, but that one I went ahead and changed because otherwise it would show a negative fund balance and that would have looked really funny and really not allowed.
Great. Thank you, Holly.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Are there any other questions for Holly on this agenda item? Seeing none, I am going to go ahead and ask what say the commission?
Your Honor, I'd move for approval. If I can find my page again here, I'm sorry. Your Honor, I'd move for approval of the budget amendments for fiscal year 2021 as presented.
Thank you, sir. I have a motion approved by Vice Mayor Mullins. Do I have support?
Support.
Mr. Mayor. Okay, never mind.
Commissioner Burr, did you support that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Roll call, please.
Try that again. Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, sir. And the last item on our agenda is the declaration of emergency. Michael Hughes. You're on mute, Michael.
Got to be at least once. City Commission directed me to hold virtual meetings for the near future. At the last meeting, the Open Meetings Act was amended to allow for virtual meetings, but that expires on March 31st. After that, the commission could meet virtually, but has to declare a local state of emergency. One of the practical issues is that while it's not extended without declaring a local state of emergency, the current gatherings and mask order says that we can't have more than 25 people, which certainly presents an issue and would have presented an issue this evening. So city attorney put together a resolution declaring a local state of emergency so that we can continue to have virtual meetings. Be happy to entertain any questions.
Commissioner Good.
Yeah, I didn't study the resolution. Is there a sunset date on that one?
August 31st, 2021.
Okay, and then does that allow us to change that between now and August 31st?
Yes,
Okay, great.
you could rescind the declaration of emergency should you choose to.
Commissioner Burr, your hand was raised. Did you get your question answered?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
All right. Vice Mayor Mullins.
Your Honor, just one quick question maybe for Roger. If this goes into place and we vote in favor of it, that August 31st date, that doesn't mean that we need to hold meetings, but it just gives us the ability to hold meetings remotely, but we can change back to in-person at any time?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay.
And if necessary, you could extend that date at that point in time.
Okay. Thank you, Roger. Any other questions for either Michael or Roger from the commission? Seeing none, I will ask if there was anybody in the audience, Andrew, if they have any questions on this.
Sure. For anybody joining via the Zoom meeting, if you have public comment or questions on this agenda item, please use the raise hand feature at this time. I see none, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Andrew. Seeing no other hands raised, what say the commission on this item?
Mr. Mayor, I move that the Sturgis City Commission adopt a resolution declaring a local state of emergency for the purpose of permitting the city commission and other public bodies of the city to meet by electronic and telephonic means as presented.
I have a motion by Commissioner Klinger to approve. This is an agenda item. Do I have support?
Commissioner Smith will support.
Thank you, sir. We have support. Mr. Rhodes, roll call, please.
Commissioner Klinger,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Burr,
Yes.
Commissioner Wiki,
Yes.
Commissioner Littman, Commissioner Good,
Yes.
Commissioner Malone,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Mullins,
Yes.
Mayor Heil.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you all. That was our last agenda item. Now I'm going to ask for commissioners and staff comments. I'm going to start with the staff first. Holly, anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I just want to mention, so the warranty is 50 years on the insulation, 15 years on the panel warranty, 1 year penalty labor warranty, 1 year original parts, and then a 1 year compressor warranty standard. And then we bought an extended 4-year compressor warranty and a 1 year refrigeration labor and parts warranty.
Yeah, I like that
Okay.
compression extension. Good stuff. That's what we want to hear, just to make
All
sure.
right,
Thank
nothing else besides it. Thank you.
All right,
Oh,
thank you.
I guess I was sorry to hear about John Svensson's passing.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Roger.
Nothing tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very quickly wanted to thank the commission for their action on all the agenda items tonight. Really appreciate that. And we hope to, as Kathy said, hope to announce some more details and good news for you soon.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Ken Rhodes.
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Kathy's picture came back up, so I'm going to ask Kathy, do you have anything else you would like to add?
I just actually wanted to do the same thing. I wanted to thank you all for the action you took on our projects tonight and appreciate how quickly that you're acting on our behalf. And I also wanted to say what a pleasure it is to work with your team at the city. And they are absolutely wonderful, all of them.
Thank you, Kathy. Ryan.
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Looks like Mike Wilson has joined us, the executive director of the
Chamber of Commerce.
Chamber of Commerce. Senior moment.
Hello, Mr. Mayor. I've been here with you all night.
Okay. Would you like to say any comments?
I would. If you've not heard already, the board of directors for the Chamber of Commerce yesterday voted to move Sturgis Fest one more time. So We have now moved Sturgis Fest to 18 through 21 August. We ran into some issues with the dates of 28 through 31 July, and so we took another stab at it and worked with our neighbors in Mendon, who also will be having Riverfest right around the same time, and have worked out a deal that we can move Sturgis Fest safely to 18 through 21 August. Still be a 4-day event, still be a action-packed 4-day fun opportunity for us to celebrate our community and celebrate our 125 years of being a city. And we will start the planning almost immediately. And tomorrow, the press release will be out in the paper and on the radio. So I want to share that with everybody tonight.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And thank you for attending. Our grant writer is on here. Mr. Hisson, would you like to make any comments?
Sure. Good evening, commissioners. I'd just like to thank you for the action taken for the splash pad project. I look forward to getting this over the last leg here and submitting the grant by April 1st.
All right. Thank you, sir. And it looks like Jessica's still with us too. Jessica, would you like to add anything to this closing?
I think that might be a phantom account there.
All right, sir. Let's go to the commissioner comments. Commissioner Klinger.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Heil. I really want to thank, between Andrew, I'm not sure if she's still here, Angie Monroe, and Mike, as well as Commissioner Mullins and Burr. They were both there more than once. Just for all the work, the swift work, as well as Mr. Hissong on the splash pad. There was a lot of brainstorming, a lot of quick decision making, and it seems as though that we've come up with enough of an idea to hopefully gain an opportunity with the DNR grant. I'm happy to hear that we have found some solid dates for Sturgis Fest. I was excited to see that as well. Just to make a note here, as we move into these next couple weeks, we have our countywide large item recycling at the St. Joe County Fairgrounds here in the middle of April. And we also are getting ready to start fall leaf cleanup too. Or spring leaf cleanup rather. Just keeping in mind of everything. But thank you for everything tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner Klinger. Commissioner Malone.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Malone. Commissioner Burr.
Yes, thank you, Honor. Also like to thank all the staff and all the people involved with the projects tonight. They were very knowledgeable and willing to explain in detail to some of us that didn't get some of the information right. But I just want to, there again, Andrew does a fantastic job as always with getting us hooked up and with all the other things he does. So thanks again, and also Mike for his work at the pretty much running the splash pad project. He seems to be volunteered a lot to be the chairman of a lot of projects, such as Dog Park, but I won't go on. The other thing I have tonight is I brought up at the last commission meeting, and Ryan was not here, but I would like to ask him about the investigation of the police chase that happened, I believe it was March 3rd, down Jefferson, South Street, and Lakeview. If he could relate any information.
Better unmute myself. I'll call myself Mike here. Yeah, so with well, I can't go into a lot of details on some of the specifics of an active case. If you have any specific questions as to what you're looking for, I can try to answer the best of my abilities on some of that.
Okay. Does the city of Sturgis have a police chase policy?
We do. Yeah, so we have been for, I know since Dave Northrup was director, we are part of what's called LEAF, which is the Law Enforcement Action Forum. Part of LEAF, we get together twice a year and review policy and come up with best practice policies that are implemented across the state. So we do have a police pursuit policy, and that is adopted from the LEAF group and the Michigan Municipal League as a best practice policy.
Okay, it's called LEAF.
LEAF, yeah, Law Enforcement Action Forum.
Okay, all right. My question is that maybe you can't say since this investigation is ongoing. Was this, I heard this was a felon that was driving a car. Was he a known felon, or was it from a traffic stop, or they recognize him? You know, what started the pursuit?
Yes, again, I can't go into a whole lot of details. It was a known felon to the officers, and that's what started the incident. But beyond that, I can't go into too many details at this point.
Okay, that's fine. And at what point, if you knew the felon and you had his license plate number, why didn't you break off pursuit? The speeds, I'm sure, were well over 60 miles an hour for the damage that was done. There were 2 cars involved, along with the police cars, minor damage, thankfully. No one was hurt, but at those speeds through the town, I've heard on the news through the radio station of there was a police pursuit in Angola, and they broke it off because it was entering into the city, and they broke it off for the welfare of the residents. Living on South Nottawa, I see a lot of police cars going by at rapid speeds. And there again, I can't say, I know they're over 40 miles an hour. I can't say because I don't have my radar gun. But at what point do you give up your pursuit in lieu of safety of the public?
So it's a good question. And our pursuit policy, and I won't go into all the details of it, kind of gives, our policies are a framework for officers to make decisions based off the information they have at the time of that incident. There were some extenuating circumstances with this case particularly that caused the officer to believe that continuing the pursuit was the best course of action. But with any policy that we have, anytime we have an incident like this, especially one where there is damage done or is a high profile incident or a high risk incident, we review the videos as administration, as supervisors. We sit down, we review our policies, not just for pursuits, but for any of these kind of incidents. And we're constantly looking at, is our policy still in line with what is the best interest of the community, the best interest of the department and the city and the officers? And if not, then we make policy adjustments, on a regular basis. One of the things that we're doing right now as a department is reviewing the accreditation process. So we're, Lieutenant Knapp, as part of his responsibilities, is working through accreditation through the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police. Part of the accreditation is you have to meet all the standards that sets forth by the MACP, mostly revolving around policies. So in addition to our normal ongoing policy review, we're going through really in detail every policy we have, making sure it's in line with the accreditation standard, making sure it's in line with LEAF and kind of the best practices of law enforcement across the country, to make sure that we're staying where we need to be to make sure we're providing the best service we can as a police department, as a fire department to the city. So we are continuing to evaluate those, and there's a framework. It's never a black and white issue as far as this is a reason to stop or this is not a reason to stop. It's a framework of things to be thinking about to determine when do you terminate the pursuit, when do you continue, the likes.
Okay, and just one more question is, can you tell me what the speeds were going up South Street before the crash?
So up South Street, I know the suspect was above 80 miles an hour.
80?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for all the information, Ryan.
You're welcome.
No further questions tonight. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Commissioner Burr. Commissioner Smith?
No, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Wiki?
I just want to say I'm excited for the possibility of having some crowded industrial parks. It's just a really positive thing for the community. Excited about that. Thank you for all the people who put work into that.
Thank you, sir. Before I go to Vice Mayor Mullins, I believe I forgot our city manager. Michael, do you have any comments?
Nothing else this evening. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Mullins? You're muted, Jeff.
There we go. Pull the mic. Sorry. Commissioner Good had mentioned something earlier in the discussions about the splash pad and not being 100% supportive of it, that kind of thing. And Commissioner Wiki had made a comment as well about us not having any water features in town. And I believe that this would fall in line with Commissioner Good's request for water features, which I've heard in the past chimed about maybe digging a river or something through our town. So
I don't think so.
Anyway, one more thing that Travis had mentioned, a large trash drop off in mid-April. Is that true? I have not seen that.
April 14th, St. Joe County. Yeah.
Okay. Does that include like tires and paints and all that kind of stuff like before?
Yeah, hazardous waste recycling, tires, monitors,
Okay.
computers, things like that as well. Paint, dried paint,
right.
metal goods, I believe, and light bulbs.
Okay. I had not seen that, but I'm glad to hear about it. Thank you. Nothing else, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Question for Michael Hughes. In your last update, you made a comment about the Recovery Act. And are we able to elucidate on that, or is that a Project White, Project Black kind of thing?
Are we talking about the funding from
Yes.
federal government?
Yes.
I attended a MML virtual meeting with information about that. So there's still some details, and I believe I sent you a spreadsheet with a dollar amount for the city of Sturgis. And part of what they said is that number is going to change. There's some sort of nuances with that spreadsheet. So I think how they described it is that it was just to give people a general idea of the types of funding, the amount of funding levels that you would receive. I don't have any better information on what I've provided and what you can use it for, but I think it has to be used by 2024. And there's some general information on what eligible uses are.
Well, I would think, Mike, that eligible uses would probably be those that were impacted by COVID-19. And I have to say that we have two funds within the budget which were dramatically impacted by COVID-19, that being the Auditorium Fund and the Doyle Community Fund. And I think that if we do receive any kind of federal funding from the America Recovery Act, that we seriously consider contributing to those two funds in a major way. We've already seen a budget amendment for the walk-in freezer. We've seen requests for the bathroom fixtures and all of the things that go with that. And so if we do receive something from our federal bureaucracy with regard to recovering from COVID-19, I think that we need as a commission to seriously consider those two funds as major recipients of that recovery money. So to the rest of my fellow commissioners, please think about that for future. And one other thing, Mr. Mayor, James Hisson, you're still here. If you might unmute, you can answer this question. How much can we anticipate from the grant application for the splash pad? Is there a number attached to that? A maximum number?
Yeah, for the DNR grant specifically, the maximum would be 150,000, and we are applying for the maximum. Hopefully, there will be additional grants though that we pursue as the project continues.
Okay, great. Thank you, James. That's all, Mr. Mayor. I yield.
Thank you, sir. I do want to apologize for my tardiness to get in. I was having a computer issue. Andrew helped me get it fixed. I do want to thank Vice Mayor Mullins for stepping in to get the meeting started, so we didn't have to wait longer for me to get in here. I do want to thank you all for the great participation tonight. It was good to hear a lot of the good comments and things of that nature. And again, thanks staff for the hard work they do to put these agenda items together. And Andrew, as always, thank you for what you do. If there's no other comments, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn the meeting. We are adjourned. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you.